I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center, and this is Dr. Savage. And we're here tonight to talk to you about tech overload, and in specifics with the electromagnetic forces that affect your body. Now, all right, I know, listen, all of you round about this point, as soon as you heard me say that, your eyeballs started to roll. It's like, oh my goodness, do I really need to hear this? What is this all about? Well, listen, I want you to understand one thing. This conversation affects each and every one of us. Whether you are young or old, whether you have any knowledge of what the technology that you have can do, this conversation affects each and every one of us. In fact, one of the things I want to do is I want to demonstrate, how this actually affects our body. Now, earlier today, I had the opportunity, I've adjusted Dr. Savage. And in fact, what I'm going to do, we use a lot of muscle testing in our office, hold that. And because she's been adjusted, when I muscle test her, everything is connecting properly. Things are wiring, they're firing the way they're supposed to, therefore her muscle strength is really, really high. Now, this is her cell phone. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to give this to her, let her hold on to that for just a second. Now, here's the thing, there's no magic trick here, but as we have the opportunity of muscle testing, and I'm only using 2 fingers here, and testing her, well, you can see that weakness. Now, can I have your cell phone? I want to give her my cell phone now, okay? Now, there's nothing special with my cell phone in regards to, it's an Apple phone, it's just like everything else. I mean, most of us use an Apple or a Samsung or something like that. But in the end, they're all the same. But what's the difference? What's the difference between her cell phone that's causing her body to become weak and not to be able to function properly, and my cell phone that's allowing her to function exactly the way her body was designed? Here's the thing. We're going to have this conversation. And in fact, in a few minutes, what you're going to see is you're going to see me taking my cell phone apart for you so that you can see what I've done to my cell phone in order to help neutralize some of the negative effects that electromagnetic forces have on our body. Now, that's what EMF is, electromagnetic field. Let's understand, everything has an electromagnetic field around it, whether we're talking about a fruit or a vegetable, whether we're talking about this remote control or our cell phone. Everything has an electromagnetic field. Now, it just so happens that some of those electromagnetic fields are damaging to our body. Not okay. In fact, for some of you, you're getting this aha moment right about now where you're figuring, I've heard a little bit of something about this before. Using cell phones and things like that causing problems. The answer is yes. We just assume that they're so readily available, it's fine. We give them to our children, 3-4 years of age. It entertains them. It keeps them occupied when we're in the grocery store. Guess what? These are not toys. They're pieces of equipment that have a risk involved with them. There is a cost to using them. In fact, I'm not going to bore you with, talking about all the different frequencies, but, when we look at our cell phones here in the middle, the mobile phones, the radio frequency is between, 3 kilohertz and 3,000 gigahertz. That's a pretty long range, that we emit these different waves. But here's the thing. That's non-ionizing radiation that's being pushed towards us. Let's understand that in the end, these different wavelengths are affecting our body. And for some of you, you're looking at this, it's like, yeah, I've seen those towers before. I've heard that 5G, there's some problems with it. Or, the computers or the cell phone or, the satellite dishes. All of these different things we see readily within our environment. And yet most of us, we don't have any understanding of what this does to us. So I want you to start asking yourself, not just, is there a problem with this? The test is going to tell you how much of a problem your body has with it. So I'm going to encourage you this week when you come in, make sure you ask, test me. Test me. I want to feel it. I want you to experience it yourself. so that you understand, because I want it to be personal for you. I want you to understand what it does to you when you're not neutralizing the negative effects. Now, here's the thing. For some of you, you're thinking, well, hey, listen, if I need to get tested, my kids need to get tested. I want to hear from you. I want you to bring the kids in. I want to be able to test you so that you can appreciate how it affects the different members of the family. Now, as always, let me just remind you, this workshop, it's part of our patient's care at the Limerick Chiropractic Center that we educate on health topics because, I know the educated mind makes better decisions. They get well quicker, they stay well longer. And for you, this is part of your care here in our office. So I want you to make sure you like the video. I want you to leave me a comment, a question that is, that arises because of listening to this information today. Leave it in the comment section. In fact, you might choose in the comment section to make sure that you're tagging somebody else that doesn't know what you know about how this affects their body. Now, the third thing is that you want to share this. Because like anything, as your friends and family get to learn alongside of you, you get to do something to help that next person live a healthier lifestyle. And it costs you nothing to do that. So I'm going to encourage you, like this, make sure you leave me a comment, and then share it amongst your friends. So, with that being said, so what does this really mean for you? Well, let me tell you. Unfortunately, electromagnetic forces, they affect us on a cellular level. It's like, okay, you lost me. Well, let me tell you. Let's make it very real for everybody. It's not a chiropractic thing. Research has already been done. Science has already demonstrated this. So it's not a matter of controversy. It's just a matter of this is the way it is. Well, it's going to affect things like your hormones. It's going to affect how your body functions, how it communicates. Oh, for some of you, I just had to say hormone, right? For some of you, you recognize those hormones, they affect, everything from your metabolism, how you burn off calories, how your body processes fats, to how it is that, our thyroid, the temperature that we have, our thirst, how much thirst do we experience? Hormones have a huge effect on our body. The energy level that we experience, do we even feel like getting up and going? So when we start talking about this, let's recognize that, as we look at this and how our body is bombarded, let's recognize that it affects us on a cellular level. And those cells, they communicate with one another. Those cells are responsible for driving the hormones in our body, the function that we oftentimes take for granted. Question is, do you really want those hampered with? Well, for me, the answer is absolutely no. Listen, we could spend all day talking about the minutia of how your body is affected by this. In the end, I recognize we don't need to dig into, is there a problem? As soon as you get muscle tested, you're going to feel for yourself, I got a problem. This is a problem for me. The bigger question you should be asking is, how can I help protect myself? Because in the end, an ounce of prevention saves me a pound of cure. In other words, listen, if I don't have to deal with all the damages that come from being exposed to this stuff, well then let me think. I don't have to spend time and energy and monies and efforts in the process of cleaning up a mess. I mean, it's exactly why we always maintain this body of ours, because we realize it's far easier to maintain than it is to fix. And, and in turn, listen, these are just some of the really simple suggestions that you can do on your own that cost absolutely nothing. Things like, give your body some space. In other words, you don't have to stand right on top of your electronics. You're capable of walking away from them, seeing them from across the room. You also want to make sure that you're not doing things like, putting your laptop actually on your lap. I know it's inferred in the name that, you have to take this thing and stick it on your lap, but, you're going to forgive me, but, these signals, these electronic signals coming out of there, as we start remembering that they're hormone disruptors and things like, male genitalia and our female reproductive organs are all in that area. Do we assume that they're not going to have an effect on those tissues? We can't make that assumption. See, we recognize that, in the end, we have choices. That's why we take our cell phones and we use stands. That's why we use things like the cradles for our laptops and, for our iPads. We have that ability. There is no need for us to actually be engaging in that. In fact, for some of you say, well, hey, listen, I just use my laptop while I'm in bed or I'm on the couch. Well, let me tell you, those are places where you shouldn't be using it anyway, because ergonomically, you can never put yourself in a position where you're capable of minimizing the mechanical stresses on your spine. So that should be one of those clues of not a really good choice. You want to make sure that you're also, not carrying your cell phone in your pocket. Again, we want to create separation in our body, along with, if you don't have to, making sure that you're actually not holding your cell phone up to your ear if at all possible. Now, along with that, some of the other things that are available, which I'm going to show you now, this very first thing, make sure that you're using a shield or a blocker. It seems so simple, but what this product does, and this is a product that we use here in the office, and I'm going to show you, I have this on my cell phone. It takes and it converts the electromagnetic impulses, that force, and it changes it into a light, into a different waveform. So if it's right over top the antenna, in fact, when I open up my cell phone case, you're going to see it right on the back of my cell phone here. It just stays there, and you know what? It neutralizes those electromagnetic forces. Now, the wonderful thing is that this particular device is designed regardless of the type of phone that you use. Since it's right over top of that antenna where those electromagnetic forces are interchanged through your phone, it automatically makes that correction for you. Now, I am all about simple. I am all about easy. I don't want to have to think about corrections. I don't have to think about 15 different steps that I need to perform every time I pick up my cell phone to neutralize a problem. Well, listen, this is there. It's once and done. Once it's applied, it's there for the life of the phone, which is a remarkable thing to recognize that you're not going to have to hassle with it moving forward over time. Now, you also want to make sure that you do things like put your cell phone on airplane mode at night. If it's sitting beside your bed, it doesn't need to be constantly transmitting signals back and forth. In fact, you also, if you've never done this, you want to make sure that you're turning off your Wi-Fi. Because if your Wi-Fi is on, your phone is constantly searching for a signal, trying to find it. Likewise, if you have a really poor signal, if you know you're in an area with a really poor signal, let me tell you, that phone, it knows what it needs to do. It knows it needs to reach out and find the signal, so it's going to continue looking for those signals in order to actually be able to carry out function. See, the problem is that we know in any of those cases, it means that more of those electromagnetic forces are going to be funneled towards the phone than we would ever want. We want there to be a readily available signal, so it doesn't take much in order to bring it in. This way, once it's there, it's simple for the phone to use. One of the things, talking about simple, talking about easy, is a simple product that you're able to use. Now, I know some of you out there have heard of this particular stone. It's called a shungite. Now, shungite, it's a dark, it's a black stone. It's mined over in Europe. One of the wonderful things is the absorption quality of this particular stone. Now, you can use bracelets. They make it into pendants or necklaces. The other form happens to be this pyramid, which is absolutely fabulous for using on a desktop. So for many of you, you have a workstation at home. You have a workstation that you're accustomed to utilizing to perform your work-related activities. And in turn, It's that simple thing that you just simply get to put right up beside your monitor that helps to neutralize the electromagnetic forces that both the computer and the monitor produce. Now, the wonderful thing is that, listen, if you choose, the larger that device, that piece of shungite, well, the bigger the impact it has. For some of you, you just recognize, I only have a small cubicle. I'm only going to be in this small space. Other than that, I just simply walk away. Others have a much larger area that they have to encompass. But one of the wonderful things is that with shungite, it's a simple process to just simply place it on the desktop. Now, in the end, listen, I want you to recognize that there are other simple things that you can do. And here's one of the really big ones that we oftentimes forget about. It's called earthing. You're grounding yourself. You need to remember back to when you were a kid. Get out in the grass, play in the dirt. Now, it sounds funny, but let me tell you, it absolutely works. It discharges electrical ions away from your body. The last time I checked, grass was free. Find a piece, take your shoes and socks off, walk in the grass. If you're fortunate enough to be down the beach, walk on the beach. Sand is absolutely fantastic for this. Now, it costs us nothing. Just like turning the router off. Because the router is another one of those devices that we all have in our house that unfortunately creates electromagnetic impulses and transfers them around our house. When we think about, where do we spend most of our time, there's two places. One is home, the other is work. We realize in the home, we're spending 8 hours, most of us, just sleeping. We're probably spending another 8 hours just existing, being with our family. Finally, many of us are at work for about 8 hours. We realize that in the end, one of the biggest things that we can do to help ourselves within the house is shut the router off. And like we had talked about, that weak signal. If you're getting the weak signal, turn it off. Turn it off because in the end, we recognize that it is something that we can control that will reduce the amount of electromagnetic forces that we have to be exposed to. Now, like I said, listen, we could dig deep into this class. This is a conversation that, when I saw this coming up on my schedule, I was excited about it, but I also recognized that we could really become overwhelmed in the minutia of the technology. My hope for you was that simple demonstration with Dr. Savage was enough for you to understand that, let me tell you, that simple thing of holding the cell phone in the hand weakened the body. Caused the body not to be able to function at 100%. Let me remind you, Webster's Dictionary's definition of health is the body is working at 100%. That weak muscle test, that's not working at 100%. That's less than. That's a state of disease. So I'm going to encourage you to stop, to get tested, to experience for yourself what it's like to experience the effect that your phone, those electromagnetic forces are having on your body, and then make the decision. Make the decision, what do I need to do? What is my next step? My hope is that, listen, some of these really simple things we put into play. Some of these things that are within our control, we embrace and we do without hesitation because we get to experience the benefit of it right away. Listen, fixing and correcting problems doesn't have to be that complicated. It can be simple and easy in order to do what we need to do to help ourselves. I'm going to encourage you, if you have a question about this topic, leave me a comment. Make sure that you're helping somebody else by sharing this information amongst your Facebook friends. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.